I am so excited to bring you this episode. I titled it Loving Your Prodigal Home, and it's the story of a mom who had a son, a teenage son, actually maybe teenage into early 20s son, go off the rails completely. And this is her story of loving him back home, back to God. And he has a few things to say as well about what helped that happen. So for any mom, for any kid, or for anybody who loves any of those people, you're going to be encouraged by this story, and you're going to be convinced that no one is ever too far gone. Enjoy Debra Wall and Pastor Cameron Andonie. Right before we came into this podcast, Cameron just told me, I'm really sick. I go, don't worry. We just want to hear from Debra.
Yeah,
really.
for real. It's all about Deb.
She's the A role. You're the B role.
Yeah.
And I know you don't care at all.
No, I'll be supporting.
Because there's
cast.
no one you love more.
No.
I mean, you do. I mean, it's equal. I mean, it's equalizing. I'm sure now that you have a daughter and a wife, but
For sure. But I mean, I got her name tattooed on my back.
yeah. And I knew you before.
Which still weirds me out.
Yeah. She literally told me when I got
So
it.
really, moms don't want tattoos of themselves.
I was happy. I was like, Mom, look. I don't know if I remember getting it, if I'm honest, but I know I got Debra in there.
Oh, so this is back in
Back in the day.
the
And
days
she
we're
was
going to
like,
talk about. Okay.
she was like, Cameron, your wife is going to have to look at that for the rest of your life. Look at my name. I was like, yeah, true.
But knowing your wife, she doesn't care at all. She loves it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm still willing to pay for the laser to have it. Though. That offer's still on the table, son.
So Cameron, I know you're sick, so you just feel free to chime in whenever. I'll call on you certain times, but if you need to puke, that's fine, because I'm going to focus in on Debra because she is a woman to be admired.
Yes.
And I want to hear your story. And you have incredible kids, you have incredible grandkids, but I know from our relationship and from what Cameron has shared at different times about you, as he has so admired you along his own journey. Even when you were, Cameron, in your darkest days, you loved her, right?
Oh, yeah.
You tattooed her on you when you were what? Drunk? High?
Probably.
I just learned the term cross-fading. I just learned that term, but you may have been doing so there was never love lost there.
No. I mean, I even remember when I'd get in trouble at times, like with the law, remembering like, oh man, my mom's going to be so upset, which is when, even though it didn't change much what I did, like thoughts were always there. I was like, oh, my mom, like I care what she thought and all that. So
you always loved her. Always loved her. Okay. So I want some history on mom. Where'd you grow up? Texas?
No, so I was born in San Diego.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
oh my goodness. That's a great city.
I'm an identical twin, and we're number 5 and 6 of 7 kids. So 6 girls, 1 boy. So I have an older sister and a brother, and then 5 girls after that. So we lived in San Diego until I believe it was 1969. Okay. And then in 1970, we moved to Lake Tahoe.
Is this like parents' jobs changing?
Yeah, my father retired, and we had an aunt who owned a shop in Tahoe, convinced my father that we should live in Tahoe. So the family moved to Tahoe.
When you think back on that, were you happy then?
Was it a happy family? It's really kind of funny because yes, we were, I mean, by all accounts, we were poor. My mother made our clothes from leftover fabric from my aunt's drapery shop. Sometimes it looked like we were wearing the couch, and we probably were.
This is Lake Tahoe days.
This is even San Diego. Some of the San Diego days, because she actually, before she moved to Tahoe, she had a drapery shop in San Francisco, and so she always gave my mother her leftover stuff, and my mom made that for us. My parents' relationship was so dysfunctional. It was just really a very dysfunctional relationship. They would go for sometimes months without speaking to each other.
You observed that?
Oh, we observed it. Okay. And I had a poor sister right in the middle who was the one would give her a message. The other one would give him a message. We were on the younger side, so it didn't impact us the way it impacted the older children. But yet we knew mom and dad weren't talking to each other. We knew if we were sitting at the kitchen table that there was silence between the two ends of the table and the conversation was going on among the kids. So
looking back, like, do you know what was going on? Did you ever discover what was going on with them?
Yes, but as you know, from a child's perspective, it usually is looking back and really understanding what was going on. And it wasn't until I became an adult and could really ask my mom the questions.
You got the chance to do that?
Yes.
Wow.
It wasn't until then, or as my siblings got older, that I was able to ask them, especially when they were involved in the circumstances, you know, what was going on. So as a young child, when that's the way you're raised, and so my father came out of a household where his father was born in Palestine. Oh, wow. His mother was very abused. He was very abused. And so you know, that type of relationship he brought into his marriage with my mother, who was a farm girl raised in Arkansas, not raised like that at all. Wow. And so it was this very dysfunctional relationship, but we didn't really, I wouldn't say that I was unhappy because my mother did everything she could to protect us kids. And she did, and she was this creative woman, right? I mean, she could make grocery dollars stretch like you wouldn't believe, and got so creative with the way she fed us and the fact that we didn't go hungry. We never went hungry. Wow. We might have eaten rice and beans a lot,
but she figured it out. Have you met her? Is she still alive?
No.
Okay.
What was that?
So my mom died in 1996. Cameron was only 7 years.
Did they stay married?
No.
Okay.
So in 71, we moved to Arizona, to this small town in Arizona. And within about a year and a half, my mom actually kicked my dad out of the house for the behavior. Yeah, for the behavior. And
how old were you?
I was 12.
That's a really formative age.
Yeah. And
you have memories of it? Still?
I just know that, I mean, it happened at that point in time, they were managing a restaurant and it happened in the back of the restaurant and we were at school. And when we got home, all my dad's stuff was gone and he had packed up in the only car we had and left and left and cleared out the bank account. So, you know, I just remember those struggles for those first couple of years, having to go on welfare.
So you were raised 12 on by a single mother, would you say? Or was your dad still involved?
No, my dad paid little bits of child support, never fully paid his child support. For the first couple of years, he showed up. But my mother got a job, very quickly got a job. And we went on welfare, but then she met the man who became our stepfather.
Okay. And was he a good guy?
No.
He was not?
He was actually a trustee from the prison.
Oh, really?
Who was in for murdering his wife.
Really?
Yeah. And they met, and he was opposite of my father. So my father was a smaller stature. Some would say he had some effeminate characteristics. And my stepfather was this tall, burly, manly man. And I believe that was my mother's attraction to him. And
so she brought him into your life.
She brought it. He was already a trustee, already up for parole. And so with the help of my older sister and my brother and my mother, who he was very convincing, they went to the parole board and he was paroled, and he and my mother got married, and he moved into a house with 5 teenage girls.
Wow. Was that really bad?
Yeah, it was really bad.
Yeah.
So, and you know, it wasn't until, I'll start at the part, there was years later when I could actually say to my mother, because I mean, you know me enough to know that I grew into a woman who is very self-confident, whatever.
Sure you did.
And so
right.
I looked at my mother and said, Mom, what in the hell were you thinking?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, this is a man who'd been locked up for years, and my mother very quickly became not enough for him.
Sure. Yeah. Did you at the time think, because you never stopped, the way you talk about your mom, you love her still.
I do love her.
You admire her still?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love my
It sounds
mother.
like she walked through her own journeys of trauma and grief, but she also let someone into your life. Is this right? I don't know.
Yes.
Let someone into your life that started your own journey.
She did, and
trauma
started
and grief.
all of our girls' journeys, right?
Yeah.
So we all had different encounters. And I would say that, like a lot of teenagers, you don't know the difference between love and hate. So there was definitely times when I thought I hated my mother. And there were times that until I became a mother myself and had to face hard challenges that I really didn't, I would say, forgive her. But I got to the point that I could forgive my mother, which allowed me to love, to see the things about her that I did love.
Yes. So that's why you can talk, because this started with you guys talking about her in such a loving way, but
the mother that I knew in the first 12 years of my life was not the mother I knew my teenage years.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
And then the mother you knew after your teenage years, was she different? I guess I should ask, did the stepdad stay around?
Yes.
He did, like, for years.
Yeah, until my mother passed away.
Okay. So he was always there.
Yes. That was a choice she made.
Yeah.
He was very much controlling. It was, our household was do as I say, not as I do household, right? So,
and that was kind of the term of the times, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
and he took my mother from this loving mother who would have given, I mean, my mother would have gone with holes in her shoes if it meant,
you could have a backpack
we needed to have what we needed to have. And instead the household went to, it's all about those two. He wanted her to look a certain way, dress a certain way. For us, those were the things we noticed. Or right, they had a deadbolt on their bedroom door, and they had a refrigerator in there, and we'd come home and we'd need something after school, and it would be like, your mother's not available to you. Your mother's not available to you. And so I think the anger with my mother was that she allowed those things to happen.
Yeah.
That she, in our minds, she chose him over us. So we lived in a house, right, from that point, from the time they got married, of verbal abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse.
All the girls?
So, all of the girls to different degrees.
Okay.
Some worse than others and some worse than me. So,
over years.
Over years.
Yeah.
I mean, and it may have just started by, we could be doing dishes and all of a sudden he would come and cup our breasts or, grab our rear ends. And we'd say to Mom, that's not right. And Mom would say, your father, because your father wasn't a man, doesn't, right? This is the way.
This is the way men are.
Men are. And so there was parts of us that, and we'd say, Mom, that's not right.
So you knew it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You knew knew things were happening in these rooms that weren't right.
Right. And we'd say, Mom, you need to make him stop. And so it's not, I mean, and that's not the way she raised us, right? So we all knew it. And why we didn't, there was that part of me that for years said, why did we not do anything about it before I did something about it at 16?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
I mean, and I I think there was this tug of war going on inside all of us because really, when you think about it, Mom should have been in trouble too because she allowed it. And so I think there was this troubling aspect of what do you do about it?
Right.
So at the age of 16, I was, so first of all, I acted out. I'd already turned to alcohol. From the time I was a freshman in high school, I smoked pot every morning before I went to work. Before I went to school, I numbed myself, and I had to have a job from the time I was 14 on, because our stepfather wouldn't buy us clothes, wouldn't write anything we wanted other than our one birthday gift and our one Christmas gift was all on us.
Yep.
And so I'd been working. I had income. I had people in the town who knew you, who made sure you had, whether it was babysitting or, I had a junior high teacher who let me work before I was allowed to work in the back of his restaurant to make money.
So you're smoking pot, you're self-medicating, but you're also starting to get a work ethic.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Which you carried with you, right? Through your,
Absolutely.
It's interesting because I know you now as like this incredible like woman of influence and with this amazing career and all this, but it's wild that as you're self-medicating as a freshman, you're also hustling and learning how to live in the world.
Yeah, we'd raised the red flag. My twin sister had, I think, run away twice by then. We found any and every excuse we could on the weekends to spend the night someplace else.
Yeah.
But my mom had to go in for foot surgery, and she was had to stay overnight in the hospital. And one night, I'd been out partying, and I came home and my mind was in such a stupor. All I wanted to do was crawl into bed, and I didn't realize that I was alone in the house with my stepfather.
Yeah.
And so I fell asleep on the bed, and I woke up, and my stepfather was on the side of the bed with his hand in places they should have never been. And I just at that, and believe me, at that point in time, my relationship with God was not a relationship with God. I did not look at the Mormon church like, Mormon church was a religion.
Yeah.
I didn't know, right? I didn't. So it was, but I just, something gave me the strength at that point in time. And I looked at my stepfather and said, I swear to God, if you don't get out of here, I will make sure you go back to jail. But in the days to come, I started looking for a true father figure in older men. Yeah. Which turned into bad relationship after bad relationship. And, eventually led to an affair with a man 21 years older than me and a son who's sitting right here.
I didn't know his dad was 21 years older.
80.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, let me backtrack or fast forward, whatever your answer is to this. When did God come in?
God didn't really come into my life in the way I know the relationship should be with God until Dawn and I were married.
Okay.
It was a little after that too, though, right?
Yeah.
I remember that.
No, it was.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back. Okay, good. So we'll fast forward to that then. So when did you meet Cameron's father?
So the company I was working for, right after that, a friend of mine got me the job in right after Shauna was born. She left and she went to a actuarial firm. So this is where the brainiac side of it comes in, right? And she called me after being there for a few months and said, hey, if you can come pass this test, I can get you a job.
Wow.
And so I did. So I went in and and this is, again, I did not realize that this was at that point in time, that this was God putting me on a path that I've never turned back from. About a year and a half later, they went in partnership and their business changed and kind of their values changed. And another friend that I'd made there left and went to a very large consulting firm, and again called me a couple months later and said, if you can come over here and meet with the managing partner, who happens to be Cameron's dad, David, who is Jewish, we started having conversations about, I mean, it didn't start out as an immediate affair, right? It started out as us having conversations and him telling me, what I needed to do. And you sat down and had these conversations about, okay, this is the way it's going to go, right? This is in the perfect world. I'm going to get divorced in February. We're going to start being seen together in April. I have a conference in Paris in August of next year. We're going to get married, go to Paris. I'll do that, right? And then we'll have our honeymoon afterwards. I mean, we had it down to those details, and then nobody would ever know, right? And then I had gone to Hawaii for work for a couple of weeks. And when I came back from Hawaii, while I was in Hawaii, I got pneumonia. And I had to be on these really strong antibiotics that we found out later made the pill ineffective. And so I wind up getting pregnant. Then everything kind of went to hell.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, so then, the conversation was this relationship.
Did it go bad after you told him?
Well, he only went bad when I said I wouldn't have an abortion, right? Because that ruined the plan of nobody was going to even know we had this affair. This was all lined up in the ideal world. So if I would have had the abortion, the relationship could have continued. So I was asked to make the choice between the child I was carrying and the relationship.
Wow.
And so when I said I can't, right, I can't do that. Yeah. Right. I've already had 2 kids. I already know what it feels like for a child to be developing in the womb. I already know that. Right. I can't do that. So effectively in David's mind, I chose. Right. That's what I chose. And he, and I think Cameron can pipe in here because I think this was in David's mind. That's fine. I'm going to support you, right? And by all means he did. He even paid, paid my salary during the 6, I chose to take 6 months off work. He did everything from a financial perspective he should do. And he, paid for the attorney, paid for all of the arrangements to be made. And in his mind, he was fulfilling his obligation.
Yeah. So you got this baby I'm just trying to imagine. You're 20, how old? 29 at this point? 28?
I'm 29 at this point.
You're 29 years old. You just let go of who I'm assuming at that point of a time you felt like was the love of your life.
I did.
I can't really felt
like
have felt
I really felt
different.
like knowing the difference in that relationship, I really felt like I really didn't know love with my first 2, and this was my first. Yeah, this was truly the first love that hurt so bad. Yeah.
Can I ask a really personal question? Did you consider abortion ever?
Did I consider abortion ever? Oh
no, it was never even a thought. It was this baby was yours, and you were going to have him. So we're getting to Cameron. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's great.
Okay, so. You are once again alone with another baby on the way.
Yep.
At 29 years old.
Yep.
Was there any feelings of bitterness towards the baby or towards, because God isn't even in the picture yet.
No, God's
this
not
is all just God, Jehovah sneaky stuff up to this point, right? It isn't a full, you don't even have a full blown faith yet. And so, how did you navigate, I have this baby and I lost this whole life because of it? You know what I mean?
I think when you don't have God in your life like that, you think about the God of the Old Testament, the God who punishes. And this was my punishment for, because it's not like, even though I wasn't raised in the best example. My mom would have told you she was a Christian home, but I knew that I knew, sleeping with a married man. Even though typically, even though, we we said he was separated, and I really do believe that was the intent until things didn't go as planned, but it was still wrong, right? So there was always the part of me that knew that, and the part of me that knew the drugs were wrong, or sleeping with other men were wrong, and all of the things that I had done up until that point in time. Yeah. So, without that, it's without understanding that it's the grace, right? All you think of is this is my punishment. This is my punishment, right? And it's like, okay, this is my punishment. I have to bear my punishment. You're a strong woman, so you're just going to bear it. I'm going to bear it, and I'm going to make the best of it.
Fast forward, these kids grow up. Cameron grows up, who was the baby we're talking about now, and was there any more searching those, let's say, when did Cameron really start to go?
I moved to Dallas, and my sister lives here.
Okay.
And
the twin?
No.
Oh, no.
Odette,
yes, of course. Yeah.
She lives here, and she does, she has already gotten into the Bible Belt.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Faith. And so she's got friends. She's got, so I start getting more of the exposure to that, and go off and on to places with her, or I even checked out the Mormon church here. Yeah. Right. So I do all of that. I've got my girls who are now growing up into, they're 7 and 9 years older than him, that are growing up. And, but this whole time, I pretty much swore off men. Yeah. I thought, you know what? I can't even trust myself to make the right decision here. And in the back of my mind, my girls are at that age, right? They're starting to, right, when I get here and settle in and whatever else, all of a sudden they're that 12 and 10. And in my head, I'm not bringing a man in the house until they're gone, right? So I just tell myself I'm done. Yeah. And people would introduce me, and I date guys here and there, but that wasn't my focus anymore. And so then my focus started becoming, my friendships and my family. We were really close with Odette and the cousins, and Randall's side of the family, and so. And while I'll say, we weren't regular churchgoers and we didn't do all of that, it was just like the exposure started happening, right? And people's testimonies would start happening, or you'd be at work and you'd be exposed to these, it was like Bible-loving people.
Yeah, like little by little for
little by little.
Yeah. Okay, so Cameron, because you were really open about abuse that happened to you as a child. At what point? Was that here in Texas?
Yes.
Okay.
So that was...
Yeah, Cameron was 6 months when we moved here. So his whole life is Texas.
He's almost
a Texas. Yeah, I'm a Texas boy. But yeah, because with my mom, work-wise, she would travel a lot.
Right.
How often sometimes would you end up traveling?
Sometimes it'd be 2 weeks a month, right?
Yeah.
50% of my time.
Yeah.
And through that, just because either my sisters would watch me, but that wasn't always the best. And they were great. They really, they took care of me. They really did. Sure. But they would also have people over, party, and do all that stuff. And they were really, really were good to me. But doing that, but then there were times that she would have me go to friend's house. And so there was one friend, and it was fourth grade. And then it went on for a while. Because and I remember at first it was really weird, just like confusing. I had no father figure in my life whatsoever.
Right.
No one to talk to. Right. And I don't know how much he even knew.
Sure. Yeah.
He's like, I'm like 10. He's probably 11. Like, it's just weird. I just don't know. But the ramifications of what it did to my mental. Yep. Especially, I will never forget the moment everything clicked. And we were at recess, and it was in into 5th grade when it kind of clicked, like, oh my gosh, like this is not okay. And like realizing it, I'll never forget what I felt. I'll never forget. That's like when all of a sudden everything shifted in me. ADHD. That's when it happened. That's when me and her relationship, like, it was always good, but like I will never forget. I was literally, knowing we were coming on here, I was thinking of this the other day. One time I was cussing and you slapped me and I called you the B word. And I felt so bad. I remember I left and I ran and I went to run away and I ran to the playground, Dartmouth Elementary, and I ran and I stayed in there for a little bit. I remember so sad. I was like, I didn't mean it, because I still, we had a great relationship, but
it was did start to do something.
It did. And me, I needed attention. It was everything. It was almost like my chemical makeup, like everything just changed. The way like I accepted love, what I need, like it was weird.
Could you sense that in him? Well, or did it take a while?
Well, and again, when you look back at it, you're like, oh, man, how come I didn't pick up on that?
Sure, yeah.
And I think I definitely noticed the relationship changing, and I a typical parent reaction is it's got to be the friends he's associated with, right? What are your, and why are you, wanting him to? We had this wonderfully Christian family that were 3 doors down from us.
Yes.
And, I'd go to them and, ask them if they'd noticed changes in Cameron. And they would console me sometimes when he, but things did start to changing. He did start going to hanging with other kids, and he did start, being what I thought was wanting to be older than his, 5th grade self should have been, right? And parties where girls kissing girls, and I don't know, maybe that happens in 5th grade. That didn't happen when I was in 5th grade.
I think so. I think, And technically, I started school too early, so I was a little younger, so I was really impressionable.
Yeah.
So technically, because I was right since end of July, and I think it's like August, September. So I was like the youngest in my class. So much, I don't know if you remember this. I was thinking this the other day. I was so embarrassed of my age around that time forth. I lied to people, telling them I was a year older than I was. Do you remember that? To Derek True?
I just remembered.
And I would like,
right,
it was for years because I was like, it was so weird. But I don't know. So I don't really know. I actually never really thought through the why. But I think going back, a lot of it was like that. A lot of those moments when everything kind of happened and just something changed in me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then there's the part of me that's like, how come I didn't sense that? How come I didn't know that, coming from, that kind of relationship myself? And I truly didn't know until, until after he started the internship.
And he told you.
Then when he told me that, I was like, oh my, how did I miss that? Right?
Wow.
Dawn and I got married.
Okay.
And when Cameron was 12.
It was 6th grade, but my second, because I did 2 6th grades.
Right,
so I got held back when I moved from Richardson to Plano schools. And it was that second 6th grade.
Second 6th grade, right. So he was actually,
I did so good. They were like, please do it one more time.
It's like, if we move to Plano, he doesn't have to be embarrassed because he has to make new friends anyway. So we might as well make him at his age appropriate level. Cameron kind of gone off the deep end.
Okay.
And I did not know how to draw the boundaries between my love for my son and my marriage. And so Dawn and I got in these huge fights over Mama Bear and Baby Bear versus how Mama Bear takes care of Papa Bear, right?
Yeah.
And he just, every time I took Cameron's side, I couldn't win. When I took Dawn's side, Cameron would be like, but mom. And it was like I found myself in this vicious circle so much that I actually chose to check out.
Really?
And I would stay at work and work for 14 hours because then I knew I didn't have to come home to it. Yeah. And instead, what it did was it just created so much tension at home, and it put Don in this terrible spot that he's got these 2 boys, and DJ was doing things of his own, not anywhere to the extent Cameron was. And DJ always got more grace than Cameron did because that's just what happens in a natural relationship, right? Yeah. And so Dawn and I's marriage fell apart. Yeah. And so, and it fell apart after Dawn and Cameron actually got in a physical fight.
How old were you, Cameron?
I was in 8th grade. I was in 10th grade.
10th or 11th grade.
Yeah. So I was a little bit older. I was like 15, 16.
Yeah.
Yep. So, yeah.
And they got in a fight and it became physical. And I made Don leave and I didn't ask him for a divorce. I just made him leave and said, we have got to get counseling and we've got to figure this out. Yeah. And in the process of the counseling, we realized that we had to put God at the center of our marriage.
Okay, so tell me if I'm wrong, correct me where I'm wrong. Okay, so you start to really dig into the Lord at this point, I'm guessing. And you both, you and Dawn, you're in a life group. You're like, okay, this is where it's at. This is the life source for us. While Cameron is completely going off the deep end.
Cameron's going off the deep end.
This is like the start. This is the start.
They find God and you jump in the deep end. That's what happens. Yeah, of course. Yep.
Like this is 16, because I remember when we did get in a fight, I had just got the license. So it was somewhere between 16, because then I took the car, I remember, and I went. And that's about time when I started selling drugs, getting into more than just smoking. So that was when it really, really started getting bad.
So your relationship with God starts to grow. You and Dawn, you're together, you're growing, you're seeking his guidance, his counsel for your family, but you are over here completely disintegrating.
Yep. And I went to church. The Kents, the Odette and Randall, they had gone to a church, a storefront church. That was honestly, it was a good little church. And that's when I first went and I experienced God. We went to a Youth America camp. And I remember Youth America, it was, I didn't remember till because sometimes my memory is a little off with some of the stuff I've done. But I remember even God doing something in me at this point. And I remember I would go and be like, I can't believe you're drinking wine, Mother. Oh my gosh, Mom. But but God was doing something in me. And
that new Christian who all of a sudden knows
But the church,
you went high and then.
And then I jumped off. That was I was 15, so that was that was right. Oh, man. Yeah. That was.
It's just so cool hearing this from both of you at the same time, though, because you can see God at work. At times, I'm sure it did not feel like God was doing anything at all. Yeah, okay. Anyways, what were you saying? Okay.
Oh yeah, no, it's just so that, and I remember
camp, you feel something, God,
Yep.
And then.
Well, I even remember when I was younger, I was thinking. A little bit, I don't even remember how long ago, but I remember we would sit there and sometimes in the bath and my mom would read the Bible to me. Do you remember that?
The children's Bible.
Yeah, that was one of my earliest memories. And
really?
And I remember hearing about Moses or the Noah's Ark, whatever it was, and just listening and be like, yeah, so it's
but I knew the stories as stories. I didn't know the stories as they were stories
as real and applicable to our lives, right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But I remember watching and seeing my mom, and I remember her she would just want me especially when I started really senior year, when I started getting into some trouble right before she sent me away. Handcuffed and shackled by those people in the middle of the night, and they sent me away. These transporters
coming in and hauling him out.
But I remember she'd always be like, "Come to church with me," and it was.
So you saw her transforming before your eyes.
I do, and I think
saw it.
I'd say too, looking. the area I was at, I was so infatuated with myself and so worried about my friends. Never couldn't even sit at the dinner table because I was like, oh, I need to eat as fast as I can so I could run back because I felt this thing in me that I was going to miss out on something. It was weird. It was so weird.
I mean, he literally sat at the table with
Like,
one foot tucked under his
Ready to
butt
go.
so he could push himself up and go running.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
Never could miss.
It was not ADHD because it was
Never
it
could
was
miss hanging out.
something-
I couldn't
yes.
hang out with friends or not go out when any friends were doing anything. It was this weird thing, like not to miss. So all that's saying, I was so infatuated with myself. But I remember my mom would always just be like, "Oh, come to church with me," and like, "Come to church with us." And I went a couple times. But I remember watching it, and I was like, okay, well, like something was happening for sure. So yeah, I remember it.
That's wild. So you started to go wild about senior year?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit before.
When did you start stealing the girls' bags and stealing your poor cousin's phone chargers?
Yeah, that was.
Have I ever told you about that? Your cousin telling you?
Yeah, no, I was their keyboard. I don't know why.
Oh, it was a keyboard.
And I stole
And
my
the charger.
cousin's
But
phone
it
charger.
was like for some old Nokia.
Yeah, I was like, why would I do this?
I
But-
know. That's what she said. She was like, honestly, I don't know what he could use with it. Nokia. Not even the phone, the charger,
Yeah.
but tell us about that, Cameron.
So that before, I will say.
We know now, like Debra's on her own journey. She's
Yeah.
growing in God. She's, and
Yeah.
here you go.
Doing that. And I remember going off, and so I'll back it up to where
back it
my my junior year, I remember like that's when I really started being able to drive. I was a little bit more freedom, and I think my mom did good. She really was like, this is the rules while in the house.
Yeah.
But there does become a point like I deal being a youth pastor, dealing with kids where they give no sort of freedom whatsoever. I think it's almost more dangerous.
And they go nuts.
Like it's just I've seen that over and over again. And if it's not more dangerous in the moment of like you're not going to do this and not going to do that, what happens after they're 18? It's like, oh, so she did good at like really letting me know what she wanted me to do. Like I need you to be here, and so there were times I did it, but then there were times like I wouldn't. But I remember I just got introduced to just from selling drugs and doing all that. And I remember like I would just never come home. Remember that? And sometimes I just won't come home and I'd go out because again, I was so afraid I was going to miss out on something and hanging out with different friends. And we'd started breaking into cars and doing all that. We had this little like life hammer, and it was just, we'd still.
Were you the ringleader?
No.
Or were you just wanting to be a part of the fun?
I don't really know. And do you remember that one guy, Ashton? He was really like, he won't play, and he was no joke. But he, I remember that he had came and he started teaching us about like breaking into cars. And that was where, and he lived in our neighborhood, which was with his mom, a beautiful neighborhood. I mean, oh, it was so nice in Richardson. But we would, and so we would go. So he was the ringleader. Started telling us like, you can do this. You can take the police scanners. Yeah. And that was usually what we would do. And then you could resell them. And that's when it would start happening where I would go there or go hang out with certain friends. And my mom decided to send me away because she didn't know what to do.
Was there a last straw with him before you, that time? I know there's more coming, but why, as a mom, to the moms listening, when do you know
there was
to send him away?
Well,
when do you know to make the call?
Yeah.
So it was not only the way his behavior was impacting the family, he was failing. He is a junior in high school, and he doesn't even have enough credits to be a sophomore at this point in time. So he's failing his classes. He could care less about his classes, but yet he could sit down and do his homework in half an hour if he wanted to. He had that kind of aptitude, but yet he
could hijack a car, no problem.
So he had
no worries.
But he had no desire to do any of that because it wasn't social. And so it got to the point that he was failing. It got to the point that he was lying all the time, and he was stealing from even his his brother in the house, right? And then he'd tell these outrageous lies that were just
trying to cover my tracks. It
trying
was
to
so,
cover his
Do you
track,
remember one?
but they
Do you
weren't.
remember one of the lies?
Well,
Was
so
it like
we
What
where
about
it was like
when
a
you
dog
found-
ate-
Well, so we were driving through McDonald's. So we drove through McDonald's, and Cameron, I don't remember. We came home, and Cameron had this little pack of pills, and he tries to tell us
It was
that
ecstasy.
It was ecstasy. So we find his ecstasy, and he tries to tell us that he picked this up in the drive-thru at McDonald's, so nobody else would pick it up, and.
You were going straight home to flush it.
Right.
Yeah,
He was
some-
going to.
But I hid it, and I showed my stepbrother,
Yeah.
and he was worried about me, so he went and told.
Yeah.
And
So he just come up with these outrageous stories, and it would be like, well, first of all, right, I was a teenager too.
Your mama
So,
didn't
yeah.
raise no fool,
No.
and
Right.
clearly is
And
not
plus,
a fool.
with
right?
all of my, things like they'd walk in, into the garage area or up the driveway from a friend's house, and I could smell the weed coming from, because
Yeah.
I
Right, you
knew
knew,
the smell,
you knew, yeah.
and they'd come in and they'd tell this big old lie, and Don, who never smoked weed, never knew what he'd say. Oh, okay, and I'd be like, no, stop it, they're higher than a kite.
So that's when, who'd you call? Was it Teen Challenge? Was it?
no, what was it? It was Spring Creek Lodge Academy.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I actually
Montana.
called our EAP, right? I called our Employee Assistance Program and
okay.
said,
Asked,
here's my issue. And we had it. This was actually covered. His program was actually 50% covered under our mental health.
People need to know this
Yes.
is out there.
So I called our EAP program.
Wow.
They put me
Okay.
in touch with a couple of places. We gave them the specifics of what were happening. They said, yes, we think we can help your child,
Wow.
which is still questionable as to whether that
No,
did
it did
or
not
not.
help
Oh, did
whatsoever.
it?
Oh, no, it was awful. It was
But
awful.
to me, it was a relief. It was a
Right.
relief, not because he was there, but because he wasn't
There.
doing the other stuff, right?
Right,
That,
right.
and even though I was a little blind to what was actually happening there,
Sure.
and that he still had some exposure in my head, right? The peace of mind
He's not
knowing that
gonna
my
OD.
child's
Yeah, for
not,
sure.
that I'm not,
Well, and will never forget. She came in. I was sleeping. It was like probably 11:30, 12 at night, and I've been sleeping. I had a girlfriend that was my first, I'd say, like real one that I really, really
Cared about.
and liked as a high school senior, junior. But I remember she opened the door and was like, "Cameron, this is blank and blank. They're going to be taking you to your new school," and just walked away. And these two huge Samoan guys were right there.
As a
It was so
mom.
hard.
Oh
I
man,
cannot
I couldn't.
imagine.
Well, I was so mad,
Oh, I'm sure.
so mad.
Yeah.
How can you do this to
How can you do this to me?
Yeah, yeah.
But I will say, I'll never forget. She wrote me a letter that the transporters, when they dropped me off at the place, and we drove to Oklahoma City. I kept asking them, where are we going? Wouldn't tell me anything. So annoying. I was like, where are we going? They wouldn't tell me. Finally, we get to the airport. I'm handcuffed the whole time, driving me, and then they're like, okay, we're going to Las Vegas, fly to Las Vegas, then we fly to Spokane, and then we finally, they just don't tell me, and they won't tell me, and they'll talk to me about stuff, and they're trained, whatever, but at the end, they hand me a letter. It was from her, and I remember, even though I was mad, and I think I still would tell her, because we didn't get to talk for however many months once I was in the program, and I'd be like, why are you doing this? This helped a lot. That first time when I stepped on foot on the ground, they were going back. The transporters were, gave me a note, and it was from her. And all I remember, I don't remember anything else, but it just said, I hate the circumstances that I'm writing this letter, was the first one. And I just remember weeping as I'm reading it. And it was stuff like, I don't know what to do. I can't live another day worried about if the late night phone calls are going to be the cops or any of that. And I loved her enough to where I wasn't so blind that I was like, okay. And I remember I was like, man, I was doing some stuff wrong. So I knew that, but I remember it helped me a little bit, at least when I read that letter, and it was hard.
So you go away, you come back. How long? 6 weeks?
I was there 6.5
weeks?
months.
No. So he
You were
goes.
there 6 months.
He goes
Okay,
away,
so,
and the intent is for him to finish high school there.
Okay.
Right? So the intent is, I mean,
Yep.
even though we knew the
Get
benefits
your-
would
yep,
run
get
out,
your
and his
degree.
dad was helping me. I mean, this was a joint decision
Sure. Yep.
with he and his dad.
Yep.
So we send him, and they've got the work at your own pace kind of schooling. So he's doing his schooling and catching up, and going through this program. And and during this time frame, we're flying up. And so several times we went up, and
You could see him.
and we could see him, and we, could do we did like a weekend intense counseling session or whatever, which I later came back and found out he just, BS'd his whole way through.
Because but it's deep down, like it was weird. I made up a complete lie the whole time, like about
Really?
my girlfriend being pregnant.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, we
Was
were
it
sleeping.
because you didn't really want to be better?
I didn't. In my
you
mind,
just
without
wanted-
me
Yeah,
ever
where
even
were you
saying
at?
it,
Yeah.
I would say I would never talk about things that have happened to me. I never talk about get real with the fact that I was broken
that was
from not
it.
having a dad. I didn't know how to be vulnerable. Didn't know how to be honest. So because my mechanism was it was this weird thing in me where I would make up these lies about stuff to cover my tracks and help save. But it's I think it all comes down to I just didn't want to deal with stuff. I didn't want to have to deal. And without me even being able to say that then, that's what it all came down to. I was I don't want to deal with the pain. I had major pain from not having a father figure in my life.
Yep.
It's major pain. I mean, like many other people do. But it was I lied through the whole way, basically. And then when we got out, and it was kind of the program it could have been good. It really could have, but it was kind of weird. They'd be like, yeah, it's just sit down. Who hurt you? Who hurt you? And it's very, what's the word when it's worldly? It's not faith-based whatsoever. So it's very much, and which still had some benefits, and I could have really helped me, but I needed something a lot more than that.
Yeah.
So
wow.
But unfortunately, he ages out, so he's already 18.
Got to make the choice when I was 18.
Oh, this is just Cameron at 18. We
So
got
this
this was
years to go.
7. I
We got
left when I
years
was
to go.
17,
My goodness.
and then once I stayed for a little bit after I
because I told him he couldn't come back to the house.
yeah.
But then, and I wasn't going to send him a ticket home. But then he talked his father into the fact that he was better, and that his father actually sent him the ticket. Actually, I think he met you.
Yeah,
in
met me and
Seattle,
we
didn't
drove.
you?
Yeah,
and let him come home.
Wow.
yeah. But it was
And this whole time, your faith is growing.
Yes.
I'm just so in awe of how God
yeah.
moves in the midst of it all. Okay, so you come back, you show up, your dad drives you down, you're like, hey mom, I'm back.
I'm back. Yep.
With some pills from the McDonald's drive through.
But here's the
and it's water in this vodka bottle, I promise.
but here's the catalyst that allowed him to continue his lifestyle is right. David's 21 years older than me, and was already 65, and at age 18, Cameron began to get Social Security checks.
$1,500.
Yeah.
Right. Oh no.
17,
something crazy.
Something. So here's this kid
You
who
got
doesn't
money.
have to work, doesn't have to do anything. I petitioned the Social Security Administration to let it come to me.
Right.
Because he still has another year of high school, and they don't do it. So he's got
You know, that's been a reoccurring theme with a few people on here that they attribute the beginning of their downward spiral to money.
Yeah.
Given to them, or too much money given to them too early.
And it's
interesting.
it is. And it was, that's a lot for a
That's
18-year-old kid
lot.
still in high school. I was the man. And
So did you just go nuts when you got back?
I just went up. First night, we had, and there was part of me I wanted to be better. And it's even in the middle, I remember lying about my age because I was so worried that people weren't going to like me. And it was just weird. And I remember I just wanted that fresh start.
Yeah.
I always tell everyone in internship, I just will never forget coming in internship being like knowing that the feeling of like having to cover your tracks, it's just like, there's nothing like it. There's nothing worse, that pit stomach feeling where it's like, oh, it's just, ugh. And just for so you get tired of it. Like even people, I was tired of it. And coming home, I remember the second night or first night, went out with my friends and we went and got high. And that was just kind of slowly and surely started getting worse and worse until she kicked me out of the house completely.
So that was the next big thing, right?
Yeah.
So you are full on running amok, right? I mean, you are in a pretty low place.
Yeah, sleeping. She gave me the car and I was sleeping in my car certain times just because like she had to draw the line somewhere. So a lot of times like I'd go and I'd park our old house. There was an apartment complex right across and I'd go sleep there and I'd just go park and I'd
or occasionally you could tell he slept on the patio chairs
because you could see the imprint.
You just go different places.
Okay, so Cameron, speak to the moms who have a kid doing that.
Yeah.
Like deep down, did you ever shut off and just be like, forget all them? I hate all them. I'm doing my thing. Because you said earlier, I really wanted to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So what? Do you think that was that always in you deep down? Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be this. Or was there some point where you were like, screw it all?
Yeah, I think, I think to rephrase what I had said, I'd say I really wanted to make my mom happy. I think more than anything, I really had.
It wasn't even that you had the compass yet to be a good person.
Yeah, it was
but
just
you
like,
really loved your mom. It came back to the relationship.
Yeah. So I'd say, and so
powerful.
To speak to the moms, I think one thing which I just really appreciate about my mom, like she made sure I'm not cut out from the family. And like, I always felt a part.
Yeah.
But it was also like, you are not going to be around the grandkids doing this. You're not like, I have a picture that I need to show it to you. I was with my nieces and nephews and I'm sitting there and I can't even recall the memory of it. I was and you could see in my eyes, I'm black, like I was on Xanax. So I was just like completely, I look demonic. Like it's just like this just nasty look. So it was like some of that. She was like, you're not going to be around the kids doing that, being around them. This is not going to happen. But she would make sure like, she'd help me, but would not enable me. And I think sometimes the helping was like, oh, I'm going to be here for you. Come to church.
Yeah.
Like,
that's
do
what
this.
I was going to ask. How did she help?
Yeah. Yep. I think with that, if like, not all the time, but like if I needed gas money, it would no longer be, here's even a gas card. It's like, hey, meet me at this gas station and I'm going to give you gas. versus let me give you gas money. It's like, no, like, let's do that.
You're hungry, meet me at this restaurant. I'll buy you or you can come by the house if you want something to eat.
Because I was going to use it for I probably used it for drugs. And again, like a lot of people are on a lot different, more hardcore drugs than me. But like I was Xanax, ruined my life. And I'd go weeks without even remembering stuff. And so she did know that. But I think with that, and then just like for family events, like I never did not get invited. I don't think
even when you were going nuts.
Yeah,
was that hard to invite him?
It was hard to anticipate how he'd show up. It wasn't hard to invite him because he knew what the boundaries were.
You didn't know what you were going to get.
And for the most part, even if he showed up stoned, he would behave, right? He would, right?
Have fun. Well, I'd have fun.
And, and it wasn't as if other people couldn't pick up at times that Cameron's a little stoned, but it wasn't.
Did you do that intentionally? Like, I'm going to make sure he knows he's always loved and welcomed here?
Yes, I did. I wanted him to know that I loved him. And I think I used to tell him, Cameron, I love you, but I don't like you right now. I really don't like you.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Right. You're right. You're a lot. You're lying. You're cheating. You're whatever the case may be. So I wanted him to always know that I loved him because there wasn't ever a point in time that I didn't.
Yeah.
And there were plenty of times where I did not like the man he was becoming.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know. I think sometimes just these mothers, and I think for me, one of my favorite things is getting to talk to moms that are like going through different stuff that me and my mom went through. It's just like I really enjoyed, and I never once won. It was not my mom's fault. It really was not. And I think what I find so often, I mean, you could probably speak to this. You probably thought trying to figure out like the enemy, just trying to how can you take the blame for it? And it's like reality. It's like it's sad that things can change for someone just through one course of one like relationship, one friendship, just kind of how life plays out. It's like has the ability to like change people's lives. Yep. It really does. And it's like, it's just, I think just knowing, I think it's really important for moms just to know like, and there's always stuff we can do different, but to live with that shame is just like, oh, that will eat you up forever.
Because life comes after us all.
Yes. Yeah. And no one can hide from it. But my mom did so good just, and I think there were times like, if I was into something too bad, it probably wouldn't be the best to have me over at the house around certain circumstances, but it was just, I knew the boundaries. I knew if I wanted to. And the bottom line, like, I don't want everybody else, all my other friends and people, they're getting to go be with their family. And it's like, there's that loneliness. It's like, well, so, but I really always appreciated it because even though like she made sure I knew, Cameron, you cannot do this. That's not who you are. Yep. Like, you're better than this, you're very smart, like all that. She would make sure she knows that, but I always knew like, Cameron, you turn your life around, like you can, like I'm always here for you. Yeah. And it was just, if you can keep that balance, it's just, it made coming back really easy. Oh. So, and I think that's where it's like,
that's powerful because I don't think coming back is easy for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, and I think it is how things are handled while going through it. Pastor Dustin, you always say like, outlast people. And it's like, I think for a moment, my mom outlasted me. And it was like, eventually it was like, okay, I hit rock bottom. And then it was like.
Was rock bottom when was that?
It was when 22nd
birthday. That was it.
22nd birthday.
Yep.
And that's when, and I was.
And that's done. When he asked you for money. Is that right?
No, it was. I invited him over for his birthday, and I had been talking to his father, and I believe he had a DUI out for Dallas, plus one. He was still dealing with Collin County with something. Yeah,
possession charge.
Possession charge in Collin County. Had not shown up for his court date for his DUI. By this time I was praying and I was, so again, there's a theme in my life for Cameron. Right. I wrote him a birthday card and I talked to his dad and we both put in, I think we each put in like $250, so like $500 towards his bill and told him
that was it.
To go get right with the court system and check himself in. And this was the last bit of money we were giving him. And of course, it wasn't made out to Cameron. It was made out to the court. Yep. To the court and told him he needed to go take care of business and that, and that we just this was the time to do it. And again, I told him I loved him, and then God took it from there. Yeah. Right.
It sounds like you were always very intentionally smart, always intentionally there, always intentionally loving, but never like some people just would have put 500 in and been like, take care of the court. But you knew that the check needed to be made out. You knew he needed to meet you at the gas station. You knew and I'm sure that comes through.
Well, that's because I saw what he did with those Social Security checks, for heaven's sakes.
I'm sure you did dish out the hard cash a few times where it didn't go up. But the fact that you were able to get to a point as a mom to be like, I'm going to love him. Of course I'm going to give him food. Of course I'm going to give him cash. And of course I'll stand by him if he wants to make these things right with the government. And if you're not, the check's not going to get cashed, but were you ever mad? Like, just give me some money. Or did you always sense love in her actions? Because she was continually doing them.
Yeah. I think I'd be frustrated sometimes. I'd be like, Mom. But like, because again, I don't think now I call her Debra.
Yeah.
Just because it's funny because I got her name tattooed on me. But like, it mean like.
I've only ever known you to call her Debra.
No, Debra. But it's like, even then it would never be like, it was just like mommy. Like it was always been like biggest mama's boy. So I think I'd want it, but I'd also respect where it'd just be more like, I don't know. Like I was the type of person, like even though I'd be going through hell and putting her through hell, when I saw her, I'd try to make it so normal, you know, and be like, oh. So I think like, I think it would be okay. And it came to the point where like I knew if I needed to reach out to her, because like I was self-sufficient. Like I knew I could go rob, like honestly, I'd just go rob someone, breaking into houses. Like, I mean, you were full on. I was doing what I needed to do, but there would be a time where like you get tired or I'm done. Just like, I'm like, oh, and I just need something. And I'll be like, Mom, please. And sometimes she'd say, yeah, she would. But sometimes she'd be like, I'm sorry, son. Like I can't.
And did you just maneuver that by prayer? Sensing things?
It's, most of the time I had to pray before I met with Cameron, right? It would be like, okay,
you
God,
see him call, you're like,
let me see.
Pray really quick.
Right.
Be right back. Yeah.
Let me see this situation the way you see this situation. But I mean, again, I think, right, the peace, if a peace came over me about, okay, that's the okay thing to do. And then there would be times, sometimes I'd hand him money when I wasn't quite sure. And then I'd just pray right then and say, okay, Lord, let this be for really what he's intending it to be. But for me, I think, because he could, I mean, because there were still those pieces of him that I'd see, right? Really? Small pieces of him that I'd see, or he'd say, or when he'd break down and go, Mom, I don't know why I'm doing this, right? For those few minutes in some of those conversations where he'd break down and there'd be those moments of truth. Yeah. It was like, that was the hope, right? That was the hope that. And
God gave you enough of them to keep holding on. So 22nd birthday, it must have felt like every other day to you where you're helping him and you're waiting to see what happens. But this was the turning point.
It was the turning point. And when I prayed and asked God, what does he need for his birthday? What should I even give him anything, right? What do I do besides this card, right?
Right.
That was just kind of where the Spirit led me. And then, but because God had the plan all along. God knew where his breaking point was and where his bottom, when he bottomed out. I didn't know it at that time.
You didn't know he was
I didn't know it at that time.
Right.
And even though, he calls me and tells me, Mom, several days later, Mom, that, he had this vision and whatever else, there was still the part of me that was skeptical.
Right. So was this the vision in the jail?
I can't remember, if I'm honest completely. Yeah. I do know something happened because, I was off all drugs in jail. Well, the night before my 22nd birthday, I was on I took a lot of really hardcore drugs, mixed them, and it was not good. And when I woke up, I'll never forget the feeling. It was the worst feeling, where just kind of the weight of all the decisions. And I think I'm convinced now it was the Lord, because I've heard from multiple, Jeremy Donovan, just different pastors, where it's always been, experience, what are you doing? And that's just what I kept seeing. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And that was when I had, I know I made the choice, like, I'm done. And I remember I went, but I remember in jail, remember being in there, and I know, like, there was a little Bible in there, and they make commissary, which is like, they mix ramen noodles with like peanut M&Ms. It's weird. I don't know why they do this. Yeah, it sounds pretty sick, but it's good. It's weird. Oh, it is. It's just what they do in there. It's like you make spreads, and it would do this. And I remember getting that, and there was people around, but I was sober. Like, my mind was getting sober. And I just remember, I know something happened, but it's hard because, again, I just came off like a lot of drugs for years worth of like hardcore
memories completely obliterated.
Yeah, it's just like, but I knew something had happened to me because it was a vision or something like it was something that had happened because then I came out
in the jail.
And that's when I came out and I was like, I came to church. And
this is just so bizarre to me.
Yeah.
Wonderfully bizarre.
Yeah.
Like of all the things, like all the nights, all the mommy help or all change or, I wish I was like this. And this is the night.
Yeah. That's something
happened. And you can't pinpoint it.
Yeah. I can't pinpoint it, but I know because of what I had done with how I treated my court dates and everything, I was going to have to serve a little bit of time. But they granted me, I've been on probation for multiple times and I've ruined it. And, when I came, remember, I don't know if you remember when I was on internship, I was on probation. I had my breathalyzer.
The ankle.
Yeah, the ankle, like it was all that stuff. We were just,
I remember
the good times. But I just, they, some reason just ended up working out and they were telling me like, you're not going to get on probation again. And I remember you talked through this little glass piece to one of the court appointed lawyers. And they were just like, look, not sure how or why, but they're going to grant you this probation again. And so granted me probation, came out. And then once I came out, that's when I came to church on a Sunday.
Community.
Or Wednesday. Sunday I came and Pastor Steve was talking about the cross. And then on Wednesday, community part three. I was like, some girl with a hat on sideways came up and did exhortation about how big and how good God is.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And I was like, who is she? And it was like, it's Pastor Jamie Bates. And Pastor Deep spoke on community part 3.
Oh,
and,
my goodness.
Yeah.
Never the same.
Yeah. And that was.
We need a whole nother podcast for that journey.
Yeah.
But I'm just like so in awe of it all. Did you believe him when he said, Mom, I'm for real? Something's changed in me. Or were you like, oh.
Well, when he told me, Mom, I had an encounter with God. And I'm like, was that the drugs?
Right.
Right. And so I was very,
lied to so many times.
I was very skeptical. And, and I just said, well, if that's true, let's see what happens. Right. Yeah. And, I had enough faith in him I spent the time with him going down to the probation officers and getting that all set up and making sure those were done.
So you did all that with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then his cousin. But again, we weren't ready to let him come back to the house. Yeah. So his cousin took him in.
Jared.
And then
Kristen did.
And then he stayed there for a while, and then his aunt took him in, and they helped him get a job and got him back and forth because he couldn't drive. And I mean that was definitely God putting all of that in motion and making all of that.
Wow.
That's when I started.
So that this could happen.
But it's really good because I think even using the word like, skeptical, like if I change, I think it's a lot of it too is wisdom because I think they use a lot of wisdom because like there had been times I had said like, this is it. This is it.
That's why. Yeah.
And it's like, I was like, this is it. I'm done. And I really meant it. And usually I'd say most people
mean it.
Do mean it. Yeah. I would say, and don't get me wrong, sometimes people, especially certain addictions that they have, like they might say it because they do need money or want money to feed whatever addiction they have. But at the same time, usually like, I don't know anyone that's like, I want to be this way, where it's like, people don't. But I think it was so nice because every time though I did, my mom would basically just be like, I believe you, but just prove it. Like, and that's where like, so it was never like, no, you're not. I never, ever.
She never talked to you.
Oh, I'm done. Like, she was like, Cameron, like, I want to believe you, but like, I need to see it. And it was like, that's where I think it's like,
that's
okay,
amazing.
Like, so it's, So I think it's just really important for people not to ever be like, oh, you're always going to be this way. You can't.
Yeah,
like, if I hear that from my mom,
you're up to,
it's like, I can't imagine. So,
wow.
Well,
did you ever in your wildest dreams think or imagine what would happen with this?
No.
That little baby?
No. I mean, I think as parents, when you don't grow up in a Christian household, you don't really think about family members entering ministry. That's not really the vocation you think about, right? He's got the brains of his father, who was an actuary, right? I'm not too bad in the math department myself.
You don't go over yourself, right?
He could be high and look at a piece of paper and tell his brother, "Oh, no, that's not the way you do it. You do it this way," right? And so I assumed he was gonna, be somewhere along the lines of a career that used that gift that God gave him
brain,
too. Yeah.
Right.
And so, if anybody had told me that that day that he shows up and listens to Community Part 3 would be a turnaround would have led down this path, no way, right? I would have told you no way.
Are you so proud of him?
I am so proud of him. I truly understand the concept of what Satan means for evil, God will use for good, because this kid, right, who is now no longer a kid, right? This kid was a messed up kid, and now here's this man that I've told him he's he's the modern day version of the prodigal son.
He is. Yeah.
He is. He just, right? He just, he just came back. And when he came back full throttle into the God zone.
And I still had issues, but I think that proves too, how deep down, I really did want, for me to, I was looking for my moment to get out, but I just, when Satan has his grips on someone and makes us convinced in these lies that this is what we belong to, or this is what we should be. When I had my chance to get out, it was I remember I was so ready. Oh, so it was good.
What's that? There's a proverb out there that says, we have our own ideas on our career path, but then the Lord guides our steps.
The Lord directs our steps.
Drives our steps, right? That to me is right.
We all could have visioned
something, but
18,
God
16,
knew 30 years ago what he had planned for this.
And I think the encouraging thing about y'all's story is that every mistake along the way, because a lot of times we hear yes, of course there are hard consequences to things. Of course there are things, but what God can do is something put in his hands.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even seem fair, and that's grace, because it's just absolutely makes me love y'all's story makes me love God more, and that's always a good story.
And I'd say too, it's crazy though, but looking where I am, I'm convinced I would not be where I am. I think being able to see my mom as that example of walking.
Yeah, you really watched her.
I watched it, yep, and I knew oh wow, my mom, this is for real. She loves Jesus, and Jesus is doing something in her life, and with her and my stepdad Don, God's doing something in their life, because it was a mess, and I got to see that. And so I knew. Right. So being able to see that and watch it kind of firsthand, even when I was doing my stuff, it was making an impression on me. And I think if it wasn't for my mom keeping relationship, when it was time for me to change, I wouldn't be here still. And I still have friends right now that are just one of my best friends I ever, high school, and a little bit after. He had just finally, now he ended up brother introduced him to heroin, going downhill, and it's just now getting out of it. And then other friends that have died, passed away, some just getting out of prison. It's pretty intense. And I think it's keeping relationship.
So good.
But a healthy relationship, not one that if I'm messing up, I can manipulate my mom or my parents, but me being able to have which the hard part is the boundaries had to be set by my mom, because I didn't know any boundaries or I wanted my way. But being able to have that healthy type of boundary and a healthy relationship and keeping it throughout me going through, it was, I didn't know the Lord was my strong tower, as they say in Proverbs, but my mom made it to where it's my mom was my strong tower. It's
she got you to the Lord.
And then it's she ran, and once I get in, then it's oh, you run to Jesus. And it's here we go. So
Oh,
But the
and knowing
interesting
your
thing is,
life
I
story.
didn't know that. I didn't. Right. At that point in time, I was concentrating on fixing my marriage, and I mean, I always want. I mean, for me, I always wanted the home that my kids could come back to, and that my kids would always be there. So that was part of it. But in that part of the relationship with Christ, I didn't realize Cameron was looking in and seeing what he was looking at. I mean, until we started having these conversations, I didn't. That was isolated. I mean, I didn't understand it at all.
Even on the radar.
It wasn't on my radar of what I was doing and where I was going, except for the part that, I knew that prayer was what was getting me through those toughest times.
Yeah. Well, to all the moms out there, you keep on going.
Keep on trucking.
You could have a Pastor Cameron Andonie on the way, coming right out of Dallas. What was that? What was the name of that jail?
Dallas County Jail.
Dallas County Jail. Y'all, for real, thank you for this. I think it's going to be really encouraging to a lot of people. You know how many people are in this position, both positions.
Yeah.
And to hear that, sometimes all we need is just someone else's story.
Yeah.
Give us
God
some hope.
redeemed both stories.
Yeah.
And isn't that so good?